Okay, Isa, check this out. So here is the SN line, and here's the Frankfurt horizontal plane. So I have to find the angle between these two lines. So what you want to do is, on this protractor thing, okay, it looks like this. You take your second line. There's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines, okay? So look, there's 1, 2, 3, 4 lines. So the second line is what I'm using for this one. So I take the second line, line it up with the external acoustic meatus, to the Frankfurt horizontal plane. Okay? Put it there, line it up. And then I use the other solid line to figure out where exactly it should be. Okay? Let's see here. Okay. There we go. And then you line it up, and it should be around 11 degrees. Okay, you see that? 11 degrees. Next thing we do is the SN line to the occlusal plane, followed by the SN line to the mandibular plane. And we're going to follow the same method. But in this case, I'm going to use the last line. There's 4 lines, right? 4 like individual lines. I'm using the last line and lining it up with the mandibular, the occlusal plane. Okay? And then I'm going to go ahead and look at the other solid line over here. And now the key thing here is that it doesn't line up exactly with the SN line, but you want it to be parallel with the SN line. Okay? Look at that. See, it's not totally lined up, but it's parallel. And then when it's as parallel as possible, you go and find your angle, and it's also about 11 degrees. Now, obviously, yours might be a little different, because all of this is very subjective, depending on how you draw your lines. Okay, now for the mandibular plane to the SN line, I'm doing the same thing over here. I'm going to put the last line along the mandibular plane, and then I'm going to go ahead and line it up and make sure it's parallel, okay, with the SN line. And you'll notice that it's pretty far away from the SN line, so you just try to approximate it to the best of your ability. And mine is around, well, it's not very accurate, but it should be around 22 degrees. Alright, the next thing you want to do is you have to have the angle between the long axis of the upper incisor, okay, right here, the long axis of the upper incisor, the angle of that line to the NA line, okay? So I have it here in purple. Here's the NA line, and here's the long axis. And all you have to do is take your protractor, okay, and put it in the middle of this intersection and find the angle. And then you find the distance from the NA line, which is right here, okay, the NA line to the incisal surface of the tooth. And same thing here for the lower incisor. You find the angle between the lower incisor long axis and the NB line, which is N to B. And just to remind you, the A point is kind of like right below the, what is it called? The anterior nasal spine. Here's the A point. And the B point is like the most inferior part of the alveolar process. I guess you know how to find the A and B points, but anyways. And then you find the distance between the long axis of the, you find the distance between the NB line to the incisal surface. Okay, so that's what you have to do over here. And as you can see here, it's really small. It's like 2 millimeters. It's not very big. And then once you have that, you find the distance, the angle between the long axis of the lower incisor to the long axis of the upper incisor. And so how to do that is I take my protractor, I kind of put it here in the middle, and then I measure the angle. Okay, just like that. So once again, to summarize, you have to have a total of 11 measurements. The SNA angle, the SNB angle, the A and B angle, the angle between SN and Frankfurt horizontal, which is 11 for me, the angle between SN and the occlusal plane, 11 for me, the angle between the SN and the mandibular plane, that's 6 so far, and then 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. The angle between the long axis of the upper incisor to the NA line as well as the distance from the NA line, okay, to the incisal surface, and the angle formed between the long axis of the lower incisor to the NB line, and from the NB line to the incisal surface of the lower incisor. And then last but not least, you find the upper 1 over lower 1 angle, which is the angle between the long axis of the upper incisor and the long axis of the lower incisor. I hope this was helpful and I didn't speak unclearly, and let me know if you have any questions.